Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. The last regular season game of the 2019 season is upon us, and this game has major playoff implications as the 12-3 San Francisco 49ers visit the 11-4 Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers have been installed as a 3-point road favorite with a game total of 46.5 points. This game is for the NFC West crown, with the loser dropping to the number 5 seed wildcard team. This means the loser of this game will play on the road next weekend in the first round of the playoffs in the wild card round. The 49ers with a win can clinch not only the NFC West crown, but a first round bye and home field advantage through the playoffs. Seattle would be no worse than a number 3 seed and won't be able to secure home field advantage through the playoffs because at the moment New Orleans is beating Carolina, and they would need both Green Bay and New Orleans to lose today for them to have a chance at securing the number 1 seed. Before we unpack this game, I want to share the numbers that are fantasy relevant to the Showdown contest itself during the 2019 season. Up to and including last Monday night's game between the Packers and Vikings, there have been 115 Showdown contests. These Showdown contests have an average winning score of 131.89 with an average winning captain score of 42.47. Since the average captain score represents 32% of the average winning score, I focus a lot of attention to the captain's position. With that being said, the captain's positions breaks down as follows through the 115 contests. The underdog running back has been the captain for the winning lineup more than any other position, 23 times for 20%. The favored quarterback, 21 times for 18%. The favored wide receiver has been the captain in the winning lineup 19 times for 17%. The underdog wide receiver has been the captain in the winning lineup 15 times for 13%. The favored running back has been the captain in the winning lineup 14 times for 12%. And the underdog quarterback has been the captain in the winning lineup 8 times for 7%. The favored defensive special teams has been the captain in the winning lineup 6 times for 5%, and the underdog tight end has been the captain in the winning lineup 3 times for 3%. The underdog kicker 2 times for 2%. The favored tight end has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%, and the underdog defensive special teams has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. Now, I also combine this by positions, and it breaks down as follows. Running backs have been the captain in the winning lineup more than any other position 37 times, which represents 32%. That's underdogs and favorites. Wide receivers, 34 times for 30%. Quarterbacks, 29 times for 25%. All others represent 15 times for 13%. Another number that I look at is the overall straight-up one-loss record by the captain for the winning lineup. And the captain for the winning lineup, their team has a record of 80 wins and 35 losses, which is a win percentage of 70%. And it breaks down as follows by the main position. Running backs in the captain's position, their teams are 28 wins and 9 losses straight up for a win percentage of 76%. Wide receivers, 20 wins and 14 losses for 59%. Quarterbacks, 21 wins and 8 losses for 72%. Now, do these numbers unlock the winning showdown lineup for tonight's Seahawks 49ers game? Absolutely not. But what they do give us are some numbers that we can use as a part of our process. And some of the main takeaways from those numbers are the running backs up here in the winning lineup more than any other position in the captain's position, 32% of the time. Running backs, the underdog running back is in the captain's position more than any other position for 20% of the time. And the captain comes from the winning team 70% of the time. And those are some numbers that you can use as a part of your overall process. And my overall process after that is, first I take a stand. Who do I think is going to win? What is the path to victory? Is it the passing game, the running game, the matchups? I look at the different matchups. And then I look at who are the players that are going to be necessary to secure this path to victory, and who are the players from the other team that will make the game competitive. Who are the players? If this team is passing and winning the game, obviously the other team's probably not, that's behind, isn't going to be running the ball to stay in the game. And you factor in game theory, these numbers, and out of those players, you find the players that you think will have the path to being the highest scoring for that particular game. And then you build your lineup around that player. And some of the things that I also consider are, if I have a wide receiver or a tight end in the captain spot, I like to have their quarterback in the flex position with them. The only way a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end goes off and has a really good game is if the quarterback throws him the ball. If the quarterback is in the captain spot, I want to have at least 2 targets with him in the flex positions. Most quarterbacks. There's some like Lamar Jackson who's a little bit different because he's a quarterback and running back combined. But that's not the case in this game. I mean, Russell Wilson does provide a little bit of a rushing floor, but in this particular game, that's not going to be the case. These two teams met in Week 10 with Seattle winning an overtime thriller 27-24 in a game that featured 2 defensive touchdowns by Seattle and 1 defensive touchdown by San Francisco. The Seahawks were led by Chris Carson's 89 rushing yards and a touchdown, and Russell Wilson had 232 passing yards and 1 TD, and he added 53 rushing yards. The Seahawks in this game will be without Chris Carson and Penny, the backup running back. And during the week, they signed Robert Turbin and they signed Marshawn Lynch, who hasn't played at all this season. And those 2 running backs are going to be backing up Travis Homer, who's going to start the game at the running back position. And Carroll will probably go with the hot hand. With that being said, I look for Russell Wilson to have to put the ball in the air a lot. San Francisco in the first game did not have George Kittle, and they were led by Tavon Coleman, who had 40 yards rushing and 32 yards receiving, and Jimmy Garoppolo, who had 248 yards passing and 1 passing touchdown, and he ran for another touchdown. And as I mentioned, Seattle scored 2 defensive touchdowns, and San Francisco scored 1 defensive touchdown. With Seattle being hampered by the injuries to the running back position, I look for San Francisco to win a close game with George Kittle playing a huge factor. Remember, he wasn't in that first game. And Seattle has a ranking of number 30 DVP versus the tight end position, and that's not a good thing going against San Francisco and George Kittle. And George Kittle, this year there have been 2 tight ends that were the captain for the winning lineup. One of them was George Kittle, and the other one was in the first game of the year, Evan Ingram versus the Giants, or for the Giants versus the Cowboys. So with that being said, this is the lineup that I'm working on presently, and then I'm going to share an optimized lineup with you as well. But I like, and I know he's going to be chalky, excuse me, but I like George Kittle in that captain spot. He's going to get a lot of targets, and I think this game will have a little bit of scoring. And since this is the weakness of Seattle, I think San Francisco is going to try to exploit it. So with Kittle, I'm also going to put Garoppolo. I'm going to go down and I'm going to use Metcalf for Seattle, and I'm going to use Russell Wilson. So now I have Wilson with a target, and I have Garoppolo with Kittle and the captain. That leaves me 6,400. I'm going to use the kicker from the team who is favored because they have the highest implied total. That's usually a general rule of mine. I go with the kicker for the team that's favored because they're obviously favored to score more points. It just makes sense. I tend to like home kickers more, but in this case, San Francisco is a road favorite, and I'm going to go with their kicker. And that leaves me 2,600. And you can go down here. You have Coleman, who's had some big games. They do like to throw the ball to him out of the backfield, and I like that situation because on Draftkings you get 1 point for PPR, and I don't think he'll have that high of ownership, and so I'm going to go ahead and plug Coleman in. I really like this lineup a lot. It's probably not too contrarian. I spend all the money. Usually I try to leave a little bit of money on the table. The average winning lineup this year is leaving just over $1,000 on the table. But I really like this. And I mean, you can do some different things. Like I'll play different contests. I'll play the 20 entry $1, or I'll play the 20 entry quarters and a few of the larger GPPs, some of the head to head and the double ups. But I mean, down here at the 2600, you can also go down to Turbin, who's going to, I wanted to pull this up. He's going to play a role. Said Turbin and Marshawn Lynch will play in Sunday's game against the 49ers. So it's going to be Turbin, Lynch, and this guy Homer, who I don't know a whole lot about for Seattle. He's going to get the start at running back. And I know a lot of people will probably have Marshawn Lynch in their lineup somewhere. It's kind of a novel ideal, him coming back to Seattle, hasn't played all year, and a lot of people will be trying to fit him in there. But San Francisco, you can move the ball against them on the ground, and Seattle ideally wants to be able to run the ball, but I don't know how much you're going to get out of Lynch and Turbin, and because they haven't played, and the Homer guy, I mean, maybe he'll be a home run. But this particular lineup I like. I think I have San Fran getting a lead, doing some scoring with their kicker, and Russell Wilson coming back throwing the ball, maybe having to run a little bit to make up for the running game and to get away from a pass rush. So that's the manual lineup that I built. Now, as I always do, whether it's for a main slate, showdown contest, whatever I'm doing each week, I take the players that I'm interested in and I utilize an optimizer that I have from a paid site that I use. Now, with my optimizers on Showdown, I try not to put too many rules. I want a lot of the different randomizations of the players I like. And with the optimizer I usually pick between 4 and 6 captains, at least 2 from each team, players that I think have a path to being the highest scoring. And I set the minimum, maximum exposures for the captains. And then I go down to the flex positions and I set minimum, maximum exposures for those players as well. I do leave out some players, not too many. And on the Showdown slate, I usually set up a rule: if the captain is a quarterback, I at least want 2 targets in the flex. And if I have a wide receiver in the captain's spot, I at least want his quarterback in the flex. And I pretty much let that go. Now, I generally like to only use one of the either the 2 kickers and the 2 defenses. I only want to use one of those 4, 2 at the most. And kickers have a nice floor. The first time these 2 teams met with their defenses scoring touchdowns, that was a part of the defenses were actually part of the winning lineups, obviously. And but I set it for 150 lineups. Now, it doesn't always give me 150 because with the minimum maximum exposures that I have and the few rules that I have, it might not be able to generate 150 lineups. Tonight, it was able to give me 123 out of the 150 that I requested. So what I always do with you guys is I show you one of the optimized lineups. I'm actually going to show you 2 that I thought were pretty interesting. These were the first 2. So the very first one had the 49ers in the captain spot. It had Jimmy Garoppolo in the flex. It had George Kittle in the flex. It had Tyler Lockett. It had the Seattle kicker, which I don't think you can go wrong with either kicker. I just prefer the kicker from the team that's got the highest implied total. And it left 10,000, which allowed me to get Russell Wilson. This was optimized, used all the money. This will probably be a popular one too. 49ers defense is pretty good this year. And it allows you to get a lot. It lets you get Wilson and his main target. It lets you get Garoppolo and his main target. There's no running game in there, but that's a pretty interesting lineup. And that was the first one generated by the optimizer. Now, this was the second one. It had Russell Wilson in the captain. Jimmy Garoppolo. It had the tight end, who Hollister had a good game in the first game versus San Francisco. We can look here. It was in week 10. Yeah, week 10 he had 8 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown for 20 fantasy points. So Hollister had a good game, and Wilson might have to rely on him with their running back situation being the way it is. It also had Kittle. I had Kittle as exposure in my captain spot set to 20 to 25%, which is really high for 150 lineups. And I also had him in the flex position. I think I set it for like 40 to 50% exposure. I wanted to have him. I believe he will be a part of the winning lineup. I'm not going to fade him. And if he doesn't do good, I'll just live to play another day. So it also had Metcalf. So it had Russell Wilson with 2 targets, and that left 1,600. And it had a really low owned and low priced David Moore. Now this left 200 on the table. A little iffy down here with Moore, but you never know with their receivers if they get behind and Wilson's have to put the ball in the air. I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson threw the ball 35 to 45 times tonight in this game with the running back situation. But you have both quarterbacks with both their tight ends and a couple targets for Russell Wilson. So that's going to wrap up this video. I wanted to give you guys some information, hopefully help you put some winning lineups together. There's a lot going on with the first few games today. Looks like the Packers are still tied with Detroit. And let's see, the Dolphins have upset New England. That's interesting. And the Chiefs won, so the Chiefs will get a first round bye. And New England will be playing in the first round of the playoffs, which is not obviously their favorite thing to do. They'll be playing at home. But I wanted to get this posted to you guys a few hours in advance of the game. Hopefully you had a really good DFS day today. If not, you got the Sunday night football that you can make up some ground. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I encourage you to please drop any opinions or comments that you may have below. I try to answer them all. Any questions or comments, I do try to get back to those. I want to ask you if you would please share this video, like it, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and hit that notification bell. My subscriptions have been going up, and I really appreciate it. This channel has grown beyond my expectations for my first go around. I started about the 3rd or 4th week of the season, and it's really exceeded my expectations, and that's because of you guys. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and I got some really good information. I'm going to be with you guys through the playoffs. I'll do the playoffs to build for the 4-game slates each weekend, and the games that are there'll be a prime time, and then another game on Sunday. There'll be 2 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Saturday I'll have a primetime game, and I'll do a showdown for that, and I'll do a showdown for one of the games on Sunday, or perhaps both of them, since we only have 4 games. But again, thank you guys for helping me grow this channel, and I really appreciate it, and I hope you stick with me, and I'm going to hopefully make this channel grow and do some more things as we move forward. You can also follow me on Twitter at Winning About. I post a lot of information there too, a lot of injury news and other things from various Twitter things that I get. So you can follow me there at Winning About. And I'll be back about midweek to start preparing for next weekend's first round wild card games. Don't forget to check the injury report tonight around 7 o'clock. Just to make sure, even if a player doesn't have an injury designation, you always want to check that injury report. it doesn't matter what type of contest, but in Showdown, especially, you only have 6 players and you don't want a zero because a player a few weeks ago, Robert Woods, at the last minute was ruled out, had a family issue. So always check your injury report at 7 o'clock. Good night or good luck tonight. I really hope to hear that some of you did some winning on the main slate today. And if not, maybe you'll make it up with this. I hope this information is of some value to you, and I'll be back about midweek. Thanks again. Have a happy new year. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports.